We're going to talk about two synthesis timed writing issues in this video. The first is making sure that we answer the prompt that's been given to us and not the prompt that we wish had been given to us. And the second is the overdependence of sources, which I think is probably the number one issue that sinks a synthesis timed writing. So we'll look at 4 recent prompts to go over what they're really asking and what students sometimes answer instead. We'll look at the 2019 windmills, the 2017 libraries, 2014 college costs, and 2013 memorials. So in 2019, the prompt clearly asked, what are the most important factors we should consider when deciding whether or not to establish a wind farm? And I think some students wrote a timed writing on should we have wind farms, which was not the question, right? The question was what factors into our decision. However, most students, I think, did pick up on that this wasn't as simple as should we or should we not have wind farms. But they still weren't prepared to write about factors. The word factors seemed to throw some students off. But again, the sources, and in fact even the first paragraph of the prompt, provides you with several factors, and you only need to use 1 or 2 of them in writing the essay. In 2017, we had what role should libraries have moving forward in the internet age? It wasn't should we close libraries or should we open, keep libraries open. It was more complicated than that. What role should libraries have moving forward in the internet age? And there were sources that showed you the different things that libraries now provide compared to 20 or 30 years ago. In 2014, we did have, in my opinion, a little bit more of a simple prompt, simpler than the previous 2. And it was evaluate whether college is worth the cost. Now, that is a little bit more complex than is college worth the cost, right? Because is college worth the cost is a simple yes or no. Versus evaluate whether college is worth the cost. I think that now you have to get into the factors again, right? Evaluating whether college is worth the cost is another way of saying what are the factors that go into deciding if college is worth the cost. So a little bit more complex, I think, than just a simple is college worth it. And then finally, again, the factors idea, right? 2013 memorials. What are the factors we should consider and when memorializing an event or person and in creating that monument? And I've capitalized "and" here, but in the actual prompt it was italicized. So very clearly, if you do not answer both the factors in memorializing and the factors in creating, then you have not answered this prompt. And I can't tell you how many people on this one, for some reason, this really threw people. Maybe it was because it was 7 years ago and I didn't have my students ready for the factors idea like I did with the windmills, but so many people wrote what's something that should be memorialized, something that's not already memorialized and needs to be memorialized. Finally, I want to talk about source dependency or over dependency, right? So there's not a huge difference between your task on the synthesis timed writing and your task on the open-ended timed writing. The synthesis timed writing just gives you the sources, and the open-ended timed writing, you have to come up with the textual evidence on your own. You have to realize that just like with the rhetorical analysis prompt, we've read the passage, right? We've read the speech or the commencement address or whatever it might be. Well, your reader has read these sources as well, and they weren't on a time limit like you were. So they know the sources left and right. So if you summarize the sources, you're wasting your reader's time. They know them better than you, they understand them better than you. So that is not your job. Your job is to use the sources. In fact, you have to use at least 3 of them, but you sprinkle them in to support your own thoughts. You still need to be front and center in the synthesis essay. And I realize that that's a little harder to do because things like windmills or libraries aren't necessarily things that you've thought about before. But you need, part of the trick here is you read the sources, and I hope you don't read every word of every source, but you read the sources and you educate yourself quickly and you come up with an opinion. That is, I think, a real life skill. We are presented with information all the time that is new to us, and we are asked to come up with an opinion. In real life, it's usually we learn something about, like in a relationship, in a friendship, in something with our parents, right? We learn something new about a person, and we have to take that in, mix it with everything else that we've always known, and then come up with a reaction. And that's really what the synthesis essay is. Even though you've never thought about wind farms before, you've never thought about libraries that much before, you still know what wind farms are. You still understand what energy is. You know what a library is. You know what libraries basically do, right? And so now you're taking in new information, you're mixing it with whatever information you've already had, and then you're coming out with a reaction. You're coming out with commentary. You're coming out with analysis. You're creating a conversation using the sources, but the sources are there only to support your own ideas. The students that score high on the synthesis essay are the students that put themselves first and the sources second. That doesn't mean you skip the sources. In fact, if you skip the sources, you will not score on this essay at all. So you need those sources, but you only need them in support of your own ideas. So, all 3 of our prompts, the question number 1, synthesis, the question number 2, rhetorical analysis, the question number 3, open-ended essay, all 3 of them have the same thing in common. They have analysis of textual evidence. That is the way you are going to score on all 3 of these timed writings, and that is the way that you are going to score on most of the writing that you do in college. And if you write beyond college, that's the way you're going to score beyond college. But even if you don't write beyond college, analysis of a situation is what will propel you in your career choice, in your, I think, day-to-day relationships with people. Being able to take in evidence, take in data, and that data and evidence might be conversations that you have with your boss or with your wife or with your husband or with your friend, and then being able to analyze that quickly and then being able to react properly to it. Those of us who analyze better have, I think, more successful careers and more successful relationships. So there really is, in my opinion, there really is some real life application to writing these timed writings.